welcome back to what is already episode number 16 of the ToonTALK podcast brought to you by Magpie247. Unfortunately, today it is only just me. It's my voice you'll be hearing throughout this entire episode with the addition of some voice notes sent to me by Paul. But we've got some late dropouts this week. Unfortunately, those things do happen, but I suggest without any further ado, we get straight into today's episode, an episode in which I will be covering the Chelsea result, the Fulham result, and I'll also be having a look ahead to the only Boxing Day fixture of this season, which is Manchester United hosting us, Newcastle, at the Theatre of Streams. But without any further ado, I suggest we get straight into it with the first match reaction. And the first match reaction has to be all about the Carabao Cup, because there Newcastle United have found their way through to the semi-finals of the Carabao Cup by beating Fulham in the quarters. Another home game. We haven't had any away games in the EFL Cup as of yet, but beating Fulham has now meant we have drawn Manchester City in the semi-finals. Third time in 4 seasons we've reached the semi-final stage of this Carabao Cup trophy, which is a very, very great achievement by Eddie Houseman. But let's talk about this Fulham result, shall we? Fulham themselves started with a pretty strong lineup, as did we. For the people who didn't see it, our lineup was Aaron Ramsdale, Valentino Livramento, Fabian Scher, Malik Thiaw, Louis Miley, Jacob Ramsey, Bruno Guimaraes, and Joe Willock in the midfield. Harvey Barnes and Jacob Murphy were playing on the wings, and Johan Wissa actually made his first start for Newcastle United. Let's have a listen to what Paul's thoughts were on the first half, or the starting lineup rather.
So I've just got here, I've pulled up, I've gone straight onto the Newcastle United Twitter account to see the team news, and oh my fucking word, I think the mood's matching the weather. The weather is miserable at the moment, and I'm not feeling exactly all the joys of spring. Looking at that team news, it's a bit of a head scratcher. It looks as if Tino Livramento is going over to the left back. Looks like Lewis Miley will be playing right back. We're down to 3 fit senior defenders. No Lewis Hall in the matchday team at all whatsoever. And the perplexing thing really about it is we're going to play a square peg in a round hole, despite the fact that you've got Alex Murphy and Leo Shahar both on the bench who are fullbacks, recognised fullbacks. So it's a little bit of a head scratcher. I probably would have personally have gone with one of those two as an option as opposed to moving Lewis Miley over. In midfield, opportunity knocks Joe Willock, who has shown definitely the green signs and the green shoots of recovery recently. He gets another opportunity in midfield alongside Bruno. That'll be no problem whatsoever. And as well, Jacob Ramsey, a massive opportunity for him. 40 odd million pound, and he's looked a million miles away from the player that we bought from Aston Villa. So opportunity, I mean, what a stage, what a platform to be able to do it on a cup quarter final. Fingers crossed he has a good game for us. Pleased that this is starting. It's been a long time in the making, a long time in the waiting. And Sean Neve as well to be able to bring on if we need it in the second half, alongside obviously big Nick Faltamada who's on the bench as well. Yes, some massive calls in there. Some absolutely huge, massive calls. Glad that Harvey Barnes is in the team. I don't think he's really deserved to have been dropped, if I'm being honest, as well. But yeah, in Eddie Howe we trust, but definitely a head scratcher. I'm definitely a little bit confused. I'm definitely a little bit even more apprehensive ahead of the match kicking off today. It's a massive game for us, and we're experimenting and we're rotating, and we need a response after the weekend's. Well, I was going to say performance, but I think that's probably overstating it. That's probably over egging the pudding. But after the events of the weekend, we need a reply by the lads, a response from the lads, and hopefully this is the team that will do it. And yeah, fingers crossed. I'll be back with you at half time.
Now, talking about the Fulham game in and of itself, we start this game off very strongly. Pretty very strongly isn't necessarily great English, but we are moving on anyway. That's the beauty of a podcast. We have got some very worrying injury troubles at the back, and Eddie Howe had to come up with a solution for that by playing Louis Miley in at right back. Now, you're going to hear Louis Miley's name be called out a lot throughout this podcast because I thought he has had an incredible week to be a Newcastle United player. But let's get started from the beginning of this game. And in the beginning of this game, we genuinely were the dominant team, in my opinion. It wasn't necessarily that chances were flying across Fulham's faces, but we did take a pretty early advantage. Fantastic diagonal pass from Fabian Scher, which is something you do miss if he isn't in the team, and a great first time cross from Jacob Murphy towards Johan Wissa. Not necessarily the most accurate cross, but the fact that Johan Wissa is coming to put so much pressure on Lecomte means he spills it and Wissa gets to tap in his first Newcastle United start. A fantastic confidence boost for him, and I think great to see us the fans score to see him score in front of the fans, because I mean he did cost a lot of money this summer and we are now finally starting to get some result out of that investment. Apart from that, I thought there were some pretty strong performances as well from the likes of Jacob Ramsey, who's been taking some stick recently. Bruno Guimaraes has always been class for us, and again the lads at the back, Malik Chow and Fabian Scher, were absolutely incredible as they usually are. Now, I suggest we have a listen to what Paul's thoughts were on the first half.
There you go. It's half time, and if that was a present, you'd have kept the receipt and took it back because, goodness me, that was not easy on the eyes. It's like the missus expecting something from Victoria's Secrets, and you've gone out and got I don't know, something absolutely ugly and vile from bloody Bon Marché. That was absolutely and utterly trash. I was hoping for a reaction, a performance. I was hoping for some sort of effort from the lads, but very much just going through the motions. We get ourselves ahead. We can't see the lead out. And I'm just hoping the second half that, Eddie, Jason, Graham Jones, whoever, is just a flea in the ear. They need to get the ball down. We need to stop passing sideways and backwards all the time. We're playing very, very, very poorly. It's disjointed. I know it's a makeshift team. I know it isn't our strongest 11. I know we've got square pegs and round holes, but there comes a point when, you've got to stand up. You've got to be accounted for. We needed, we wanted, we expected a reaction, and I don't think we got that in the first half. So it's all square. It's even Stevens, and it's probably anybody's game from this point onwards. And hopefully, when I come back, it's Newcastle United who have got through to the semi-finals. Fingers crossed.
And in that first half, pretty quickly after we scored the first goal, Fulham did equalize. Another lead we give away, another one to add to the tally, which, I mean, has become a pretty consistent topic throughout the entirety of this season. But we did manage to hold on pretty strongly, and in the second half, in my opinion, very much dominate. Let's get on to that second half and how we dominated. I think Eddie Howe got one thing about the Fulham game spot on, which is something he translated then towards the Chelsea game and actually worked really, really, really well there as well. I'm talking about man of the match, Lewis Miley. What an unbelievable player he is. Lewis Hall was out for this game with an injury, which meant Tino Livramento had to start at left back, and Lewis Miley was starting at right back, but he actually inverted into that number six role, kind of like we see Reece James do, for example, for Chelsea. And I think Lewis Miley was unbelievably effective playing in this role, which is something I didn't necessarily see him doing, but all credit to Eddie Howe for recognizing Lewis Miley's ability to do so. And I thought him stepping in the right times, him being so secure, him winning nearly every single duel he contests is such a massive gain for us in both midfield and defensive areas that at this moment in time, I think Lewis Miley is pretty much undroppable for this Newcastle United team. The third midfield slot or fullback slot while Tino Livramento is injured is very much his to lose, and I'm completely here for it. Apart from Lewis Miley, though, there were some iffy performances, shall we say. I thought Joe Willock has been very, very positive over the last couple of weeks, shall we say, over the last couple of games. But today, or last week against Fulham, he had a very, very big off day, in my opinion. He was quite invisible, didn't present himself in the right moments or create the right opportunities for his teammates, which meant we were lacking one midfield presence, in my opinion, which was also not necessarily the main reason because it was quite a good goal Fulham scored, but also one of the reasons. I think Joe Willock's concentration goes wayward sometimes. I mean, he doesn't seem to be able to concentrate himself throughout 90 minutes, which is a hard task for anybody, but for a professional footballer, it's quite necessary to be able to do so. I already touched upon the fact that I thought Jacob Ramsey had a pretty positive impact for us, given the fact that a lot of people have started to criticize him and a different player, which we will get onto for the Chelsea game. I think it's great to see him get a bit more, not only game time, but a bit more confidence in his game. He was putting himself about really nicely in this Fulham result, trying to combine with players, trying to show a lot of energy in midfield, which is essentially what we bought him for. The one thing I do very much worry about with him and another player as well is, have we just signed a profile which we already had in this squad? Either to replace that profile in the future or just stick to what we know. I think this summer we have very much missed the trick by not going out there and signing profiles which we absolutely don't have. Like, for example, a purely creative presence in midfield, like, for example, a winger who wants to cut inside instead of just use his physical attributes. I think that could be very, very interesting. Having said that, though, we did go on to win this game, which means there is actually not that much for me to complain about in the end. It was a very late winner from Lewis Miley, again, Lewis Miley, which saw us go through in this fixture. But let's be honest, the goal was coming. We were putting a lot of pressure on the Fulham goalkeeper at that moment in time. Right before Miley scored, Lecomte already saved a shot from Lewis Miley, which was going into the far corner as well. So we were knocking on the door to get that lead, to get that advantage, and to knock Fulham out of this cup. And to be honest, if we want to be knocking on the quote unquote cartel Big Six clubs' doors, these are the games you have to win. You have to win trophies, and you only win trophies by beating the teams you have to beat in the run up to the final of those competitions. So now we do have Manchester City in the semi-finals. Semi-final of the Carabao Cup is home and away. If you remember last season, where home and away we beat Arsenal 2-0, both at St James's Park and at the Emirates Stadium. Manchester City most likely is going to be a more difficult task, but we do start at home again, which means if we can get a result like we did in the Premier League this season against City at home, we could take that result towards the MTR and maybe even, I'm not gonna say stunt because I think that's too I think if I were to say a stunt, I'd downplay our abilities too much. But given where we are in the league table this season, given what historically we have won as a football club, it would be massive to reach a third final in 4 seasons. And given the fact that Arsenal Chelsea is the other semi-final, I think we are facing the strongest team at this moment in time still left in the competition. I believe Arsenal are stronger than City and will most likely go on to win the Premier League. But right now, as we speak, this 22nd of December, I think City are the form team in the Premier League when it comes to the title challengers. So, a very big result for us in the Carabao Cup, a very big game against Manchester City for us to look out for. I think the first leg is at the start of January and the second leg is at the start of February. With that now out of the way, I suggest we finish that segment off by listening to what Paul's thoughts were on the second half and thereby the entire game against Fulham.
I honestly, at this point, I don't know what's worse, the way that I feel or the performance. But either which way, I want to park them to one side, because in football, all that matters is that there is winners and there is losers. And the winners today, Newcastle United, somehow out of the jaws of an absolutely nailed-on penalty shootout, Newcastle United snatch it late, and of course myself and Kyle in the thick of the action with Sandro there in the corner. Absolutely love the passion. How class was he when he came on, by the way? Absolutely fantastic. You know, we had to dig deep. It wasn't pretty. In fact, it was absolutely and utterly fucking foul for large parts of the entire game, second half included. Oh, goodness me, I was, if I had hair, this is why I probably have it all shaved off all the time. Because if I had hair, I'd have been pulling it out by the absolute fistful during that second half. It was a hard watch. It was a tough watch. But look, when it mattered most, the quality, it came to the front. Sandro Tonali came on not once, not twice, three times. Absolutely lovely bits of skill. He takes the corner, bang. Lewis Miley, emergency right back, is the man. He's Johnny on the spot. He gets the goal. And St James's Park, which had been, well, it sort of resembled me at about 2 o'clock on a Christmas day normally, when I see a massive pile of pots and I'm expected to wash every single one of the buggers up and dry and put them away. It had that sort of feeling about it. But then in stoppage time, there or thereabouts, we get the goal and the place literally just lights up. It was like a release of emotion, frustration, stress, anger, disappointment, you name it. There was an absolute, you could feel it in the air as the goal went in. We're celebrating there right in front with Tonali. Tonali's looking straight at us. And yeah, one moment of quality wins it at the end. I thought that was destined. I thought that was literally guaranteed, nailed on, especially with the referee in the way that he went on for spot kicks. And Fulham not cruelly dumped out, because I don't think they offered a great deal, to be honest. They had that one chance, they took it. They didn't really offer very much else, but to be fair, nor did we. But at the end of the day, football's about moments, it's about opportunities. Seasons can turn on one decision, one game, one moment, and let's hope that at the end of the game today was that moment for Newcastle United. We get the goal, we win 2-1, and we're through to the semi-final. And I don't give a shit who we get, but we're in the semi-final, and you've got to be in it, lads, in order to win it.
And that then means we can move on straight away to a game which will be a bit fresher in the memory. The game of not yesterday, but the day before. We played Saturday against Chelsea. And I mean, let's first of all list off the starting lineup and then listen to what Paul's thoughts were on those 11 men starting the game against Chelsea. Aaron Ramsdale back in goal. Lewis Hall, fortunately, back from injury. Sharon Tiao alongside Lewis Miley making up the defense yet again. Jacob Ramsey got another start. He played together with Tonali and Bruno Guimaraes in midfield, and Anthony Gordon, Jacob Murphy, and Nick Voltemade made up our front three. Now, Paul, what were your thoughts on that starting 11?
So it's the big match today at St James's Park. Massive 3 points on offer. If we are serious about getting back into European contention, then we must get a victory at all costs today. Chelsea won't be easy. They're a team with a lot of quality in, but fingers crossed, heading to St James's Park now. Away the lads.
Now, this very much was a game of two halves. Let's first of all talk about that first half. A first half in which we went into the dressing room with a 2-0 advantage thanks to a big Nick Voltemade brace. The first goal is a bit of a lucky goal, shall we say. I think it's still a great ball in from Jacob Murphy, who has been playing through a knock, and I think you can see it in his performances that he has been playing through a knock, but we will get back to that in a second. He gets the ball into the box. Nick Voltemade misses it, I think. Anthony Gordon wants to take on the challenge, or at least get a shot on target, but he kind of flops his attempt after he gets not necessarily hit, because I didn't think it was going to be a foul either way if Malo Gusto did hit him, or if the ball didn't go in afterwards. But Malo Gusto did make an absolute mockery of that particular situation. It looked very comical the way he went down, the way Anthony Gordon went down, the way he stayed down, and then all those Chelsea players swarming the referee. I mean, I do think I have to acknowledge that for a second. Chelsea players throughout this 90 minutes were all so unbelievably annoying. And I mean, I don't necessarily like Chelsea as a football team all that much anyway, but Malo Gusto was genuinely just in the wrong there. He did not defend Gordon at all for that first goal, which meant Nick Voltemade was there to just put it into a near on empty net. But Malo Gusto, instead of just making that reckless challenge and then going down claiming a foul, you could just put yourself in between the player and the ball to make sure they don't get any more chances out of that situation. I, I think Malo Gusto has been struggling massively this season, and Chelsea do have a mentality problem because the fact that all of those players are so rattled by that refereeing decision, the fact that, and I genuinely do mean rattled because for 10, 15 minutes afterwards, the Chelsea players looked like they they were just rattled. I can't really say anything else than that. They looked like they were so taken aback by the decision by the referee to let the first goal stand that they weren't able to get back into the first half. And this first half was the most dominant performance we've seen from Newcastle this season. The best performance, in my opinion, we've seen from Newcastle because this was everything we've been crying out for this entire season. We got in front very early on in this game, but instead of just folding back like we usually do, absorbing pressure and then giving away the lead, we actually just kept on playing. We kept on winning every single duel, every single second ball. We kept on crossing, which was my biggest positive. Both in the Fulham game, I already liked it a lot, but in this Chelsea result, it was very clear there were so many balls into the box, which is such a dangerous thing to do. Look at our second goal. It came from a set piece, but instead of just swinging it in the box straight away, we got it to Gordon, who put a pinpoint cross into the feet of Nick Voltemade. And this is another frustrating point again. Anthony Gordon has got such an unbelievable crossing ability as well, just the same as Jacob Murphy. So why is it that we can play a game like the Derby a week ago and not put in a single cross on the big German's head? That's so frustrating because we have so many good crossers of the ball, but we're just not utilizing that ability enough. And against Chelsea, we did utilize it and we got a goal out of it. Just about on side, which is all you need to be. 2-0, and at that moment in time, I thought, were we going to see us finally dropping back and absorbing pressure? But even then, we didn't. We still showed energy, we still showed a willingness to win the duels, and it honestly could have and maybe should have even been 3 to 4-0 at halftime, which meant that at the break, I think Eddie Howe would have been very pleased, everyone would have been very pleased, but Enzo Maresca would have been furious, and he got his message across. Paul, let's listen firstly to your thoughts on the first half.
So half time, 2-0. It should have been 3, could have been 4. We're happy with the 2. Complete performance for Newcastle as far as I'm concerned. Bossed it from minute 1 till literally minute 49. I think the only blind in the ointment has been the referee. He's been weak, he's been piss poor. Chelsea have lobbed themselves on the floor a lot. But what do you think, Kyle? Decent over the 45?
It's probably been my best first half of the season. There's usually been slow starters this year in terms of getting forward and getting the goals, but I was started really strong. Voltemade getting the goal straight off. I mean, a lot of Sunderland fans giving him shit through the week. He scored 2 in the first half. And he's probably had his best half of football as a Newcastle United centre forward, so really good to see from him. Really intense as well. I think Lewis Miley at fullback has been absolutely outstanding. He's marked Garnacho out the game. We've just got to keep it going and get through the first 20 minutes of this second half without conceding, but so far we've done really well. We didn't sit back at 1-0, we kept going for them. We had a little bit of a drop, but we managed to get the second, which VAR tried to rule out. I honestly don't know where that came from. I went into the concourse to check the replay, I see it straight away. It was onside. I don't know what they were looking at. And Chelsea fans and Chelsea players seem to think your hand is next to your shin bone. So that's a bit of news for you.
Well, maybe if they've been to Sunderland on the way up, then they might have seen some of that, to be honest. That might be the actual thing. It is funny how the Sunderland fans taking the mick out of Nick Baltimore when they couldn't even afford anywhere near the quality of the lad. You know, I do find it, I do find it a bit of a piss take and a bit of a low-life thing. But we expect that of Sunderland. But look, if we keep all of this result, keep them out, top half of the table, Christmas time it'll be a lot better, and all the fearmongers and the doomsday merchants will be put to bed and quieten them down for a little bit.
Yeah, for sure. I think after the Sunderland game, we're both kind of agreed in saying the turnaround, the resurgence has to be from there. And obviously, we're one against Fulham in the week in the cup, and then we've started really well here. But game's not finished yet. But if we can get the 3 points here, it'll be a really good result.
Yeah, big 45 ahead. Hopefully, we're coming back with positive news and full time. So half time, 2-0 to Newcastle United.
In the second half, it did go a bit tits up, didn't it? Now, this is a very strange result, in my opinion, to talk about, because I am not necessarily as negative about this as I would have been if you told me beforehand that we would drop 2 points yet again, especially from a 2-goal advantage. But that Reece James free kick, Ramsdale maybe doesn't necessarily look the best there, but I do think those free kicks just can blow in, and there's not necessarily that much you can do about it if you're a Newcastle player, especially from a Newcastle defensive point of view. But that goal, along with the fact that we have been struggling to hold on to leads this season for a long time, means I think that the players' knees started to buckle a bit, the players' confidence started to drain, and they started to feel the notion in the air, or the second goal for Chelsea in the air, shall we say, which is exactly what happened when Joao Pedro got through, thanks to, let's be honest, a miscalculation or a misjudgment on Malik Thiaw's behalf, which is a very rare occurrence. I don't think we see Malik Thiaw make those kind of mistakes ever in a Newcastle United shirt, and I'm not going to slate him for making that particular mistake, because you want your defenders to have confidence to try and outmuscle, to try and win duels, and I think especially a defender like Malik Thiaw, whose biggest moments this season have come in millimeter perfect tackles, in inch perfect challenges, to be fair. These kind of, not necessarily games, because I don't think he had a bad game, that it was genuinely just that particular moment which saw Joao Pedro go through one-on-one. That was a lack of judgment, that was a lack of making the right decision at that time. But apart from that, I think Thiaw is great, so I think we can forgive him for that one. Aaron Ramsdale, however, I don't think I've seen Aaron Ramsdale make any particularly great saves since he's been a Newcastle United goalkeeper, which is worrying. Yes, he's a way better footballer than someone like Nick Pope is, for example, but how much do we actually value that if Nick Pope is genuinely, and I do think this is the case, a league apart from Ramsdale when it comes to shot stopping? Now, these are interesting questions to ask, and I do think it is unfortunate that we give that 2-0 lead away to this Chelsea side and let them come back towards 2-2. But after the 2-2 or the 2-all, I think we actually started to get back some rhythm into this game. We started to create some chances again, and that leads me perfectly on to two talking points for Newcastle United. First of all, I already alluded to this. The recruitment in certain areas has meant we've brought in profiles which are very similar to the profiles we already have. Why not bring in profiles we don't possess, like a creative winger or a creative midfielder or an out and out destroyer? We only have these midfield engines like Tonali, Bruno, Ramsey, Willock, or these freaks of nature on the wing like Gordon, Elanga, Murphy, Barnes. And that's all nice to have, but I think you need to have more diversity. Because we changed up the way we play at fullback, especially at the right back position now, with Tino Livramento having to be replaced by Louis Smiley. who is a completely different profile. That saw our opponent having to guess at what we were going to do, having to adapt, and that's unbelievably useful to have. I don't think we've invested in different profiles enough to have spent £100 million on the likes of Ramsey and this immediately brings me on to my second point. I do not like being negative about Newcastle players at all, especially if it's new signings who I think need time to bed in. But I don't think we're going to see much else from what we've already seen from this player. I'm talking about Anthony Elanga. Listen, the more I see of him, the less convinced I am about his signature, especially for the money we paid for him. Are you telling me in a world we pay 55 million for Elanga, you couldn't have found a creative midfielder and a creative winger for the same amount of money? And don't tell me you couldn't have, because Ryan Cherki cost 35 million pounds for Manchester City. And if you're saying City got lucky, everybody who watched Cherki play at Lyon knew exactly the kind of player he was going to be at Manchester City, and that's exactly this. So the fact that we weren't in for him, the fact that we haven't showed any interest in creative wingers, does worry me a bit, because Anthony Elanga, what is going on, mate? I don't think he is as bad as he has been playing for us at this moment in time, but a 50% fit Jacob Murphy, for me, plays 90 minutes if it avoids me having to see Anthony Elanga come on for 15. And I'm really sorry, I don't want to say that, because I want Anthony Elanga to work out at Newcastle United and I want us to get our money's worth from a signing like that. But oh my god, does he consistently, without fail, make every wrong decision possible. And the cherry on top was against Chelsea when Ramsdale, with a throw-out, puts him straight through on goal, and Risa and Barnes are there to help him, and he just shoots it straight at Robert Sanchez. What are you doing there, Elanga? Where's the overview? Where's the presence of mind? How are you not able to realize at that moment in time that if you have Chelsea's rest defense, which was Caicedo and Cucurella, probably Chelsea's best two defenders, if those two are both on your ass and you're not even inside of the 16-yard box, how can you make the decision to shoot instead of lay it off to a teammate? That to me is genuinely unacceptable, because that shows me that getting off the mark to you is more important than the 3 points are to Newcastle United, and that's not acceptable to me. That's why, for me, Anthony Elanga at this moment in time is the closest player to a genuine flop, a genuine transfer I don't want to see play for us anymore since the takeover. And that's very harsh words, but I am fed up with Anthony Elanga already, and it's not even January at this point. So those are my general thoughts on both the Chelsea result and the Newcastle players in the Chelsea game. I thought Tonali had a pretty good game, which was great to see, because he's been uncharacteristically poor over the last 3 to 4 games. I thought Voltemade was putting himself about greatly as well, apart from scoring the goals. And it was great to see Lewis Hall get fit for this game, because whilst we do want to see lads like Alex Murphy get a chance, because he did get a chance against Fulham finally and actually did really impress me there, it's still not necessarily nice to see that he does sit on the bench this entire game anyway. We only made 4 substitutions, so there could have maybe even been a fifth, given the fact that both Cher and Lewis Hall were on yellow cards. But unfortunately, it wasn't to be, so no Alex Murphy yet again in the Premier League. I suggest we now have a listen to what Paul's thoughts were on that second half as well.
Well, we did say at half time the game wasn't over. It should have been. We should have been out of sight. But a combination of Newcastle United shooting ourselves in the foot like only Newcastle United can do, and mixed in one of the worst refereeing performances that I have seen ever at St James's Park. You know, awarding soft free kick after decision after decision for Chelsea. He should have been wearing a blue shirt, I felt, throughout the game, to be honest. But then, up the other end, carbon copies of the same things that were happening and going for Chelsea. Going against us, no consistency, mad decisions, VAR not even looked at. Goodness me, we could have had a couple of spot kicks in the second half. They should have been down to 10 men. We sat there left scratching our heads, but look, it's not all on the referee. Of course it's not. This season was perfectly summed up in that game. An inability to hold on to a lead, shooting ourselves in the foot, not being able to make hay while the sun is shining. You know, we had 2 goals. I said the next goal was going to be massive. It should have been for us, and it wasn't. And just so inconsistent this campaign. You just do not know which Newcastle United is going to turn up. You know, I don't think we've been great in the goalkeeping department all campaign, if I'm being totally honest. But look, credit to the lads. You know, we've got a bit of a defensive issue going on. We've got a bit of an injury crisis going on, but we stuck to it. I thought Lewis Miley was fantastic again. Big Nick up top, obviously after getting a little bit of grief off Sunderland supporters and a bit of banter their way, responded in the best possible way by scoring 2 goals. And there were others. I think Jacob Ramsey played well. Tonali put himself about all over the place. You know, it wasn't a bad performance, but it was just Newcastle United in a nutshell this campaign. You know, you look at the wider season and what's gone on and the problems that we've had, and you saw all of that in abundance, and then some with a cherry on top. This game, this performance. So I'm gutted. I'm really gutted. It's another 2 points dropped, and it felt like today was an occasion where we had to take advantage. Today felt like one of those sort of games that, you know, if we are seriously about getting into Europe next season, then we needed the victory, we needed the points, we needed the momentum, and it wasn't to be. And I feel absolutely gutted because it was there for the taking. It wasn't because Chelsea were great. Chelsea threw themselves to the floor, they rolled about a lot, they complained, they whined, they bitched, they did a lot of that, but it wasn't because they were particularly great. We've let them in, we've been a bit naive, and we've dropped points once more. So I'm gutted. I wish it was a little bit more positive. We've now got 2 away games as well. So, you know, winnable on paper, but they're away from home, so you'd think that would be a difficult ask for this group and this team. Hopefully reinforcements are being sought, and, you know, things are being agreed behind the scenes, because I think the team needs a little bit of help. I think Eddie Howe needs a little bit of help going into the second half of the season. I know it's the festive days. Christmas is almost upon us, but I didn't think we'd gift wrap up Chelsea at present quite like that. Gutted, but it's a point on the board. It's something. Never a dull moment at St James's Park, is there? There really isn't. But points dropped today. You can't sugarcoat it. But we're going to some away games now, and hopefully we get a little bit of that luck that Chelsea had today. Wouldn't that be nice? Wouldn't it be nice if we got a little bit of luck for a change? But it's very Tottenham-esque, isn't it? That's how I feel. Very similar to the close of that game. But we'll be back for the Crystal Palace game. I guess we go again. We've got to keep trying, fighting. Hopefully 1 or 2 players back by then. Hopefully maybe 1 or 2 signings. You never know by then as well. Fingers crossed about that one. Anyway, I'll leave it there. Have a Merry Christmas. Try to put this one out of your mind. And let's get ready to go again on Boxing Day for what? Manchester United away. Tidy fixture. So, yeah, let's hope we can get some more points out of that one as well. But yeah, 2-2, gutted, down, but we live to fight another day.
And without any further ado, I suggest we finish off this episode, which is going to be a very short episode, I know, but again, it's just me. I don't think you want to listen to just me talking for 2 hours straight. So let's finish off by previewing the Manchester United game next week on Boxing Day. Yes, we are traveling to Old Trafford to Manchester United, and immediately the biggest news we have to talk about is that Bruno Fernandes is most likely going to miss this game for Manchester United. So that means Bruno Fernandes is out. Amad Diallo at the Africa Cup of Nations, Brian Mbuemo at the Africa Cup of Nations, Nusser Mazraoui at the Africa Cup of Nations. So this should be a very big opportunity for us to get 3 points, 3 points away from home and 3 points away from home against what has honestly been quite a good team this season. I think anybody who had higher expectations of this Manchester United team has to be called deluded because they are already pretty much overperforming, but they are scoring goals for fun. The 4-4 against Bournemouth comes to mind. Given the fact that Mbuemo and Fernandes are now out of this team, that might take a little step backwards, but Kobe Mainu is also out for this game, but Benjamin Sesko is back. So we are going to have to be careful. Amorim also seems to be becoming a bit more tactically versatile because against Bournemouth they did eventually switch it up towards a back four, which is something I never thought I would see Amorim do. But no excuses. We've got Manchester United away now, and afterwards I think the first game for us is Burnley away. Let me have a very quick gander. Yes, I am correct. Burnley away. So two very big away or very winnable away games, shall we say, to finally get that away curse some way behind us and get a run together. Afterwards, it's Leeds at or Palace at home, then it's Leeds away, then it's or Leeds at home, Wolves away, something like that. So a very big opportunity for us to get some consistent points on the board to start climbing the table. And to be honest, I don't think there are any excuses to not go out and win at Old Trafford. Yes, Man United have shown some great results, but you also have to consider they've got 1 to 2 19-year-olds at the back at every single game. The other defender is Luke Shaw. Given the fact that Bruno and Kobe will both be missing, I presume we will see a midfield of Ugarte Casemiro, which is unbelievably negative as well. No excuses. We have to get the 3 points against Man United. But that was the episode. I hope you did go on to enjoy it, even though it was just me this week. If you did go on to enjoy it, please make sure to leave a like on this video. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. If you are listening to this on Spotify, please give us a 5-star review. And head over to all our social media, Magpie247 on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. You know the drill. We've got a lot of new members in our group, which means new forms of articles, new forms of content coming to you very, very soon. I hope you're all looking forward to it, and I hope to see you all again very soon. Have a